Welcome back to the Torque Test channel. This is another one of our 4 science videos where we look into, test, and reveal our findings on stuff because it's fun. And this is the culmination of over 6 months of start and stop just curiosity testing of batteries we bought, batteries our viewers flagged as counterfeit, batteries viewers made their own hot rod versions of, and this insane thing nicknamed the Beast that's full of spicy noodles and absolute pain. And M18 packs viewers made in excess of the capacity Milwaukee offers, including 13.5 and 15 amp hours. So we just kept accepting more and more until Tools started to kick the bucket, and here we are at the finish line. And can't say it started out that way. We'll call this chapter 1, the too good to be true Amazon 8 amp hour. We simply bought this here 8 amp hour M18 battery, not a counterfeit, but a sort of high output copycat pack that's advertising 21700 size cells for like 50 bucks. Nice. Just a single battery, no episode here, just a guy using some tools, but after using it for a bit, I had a hunch, so strapped it on some load testers and compared it to an XE 8.0, and it got about as much juice as an XE 6.0 here, not 8 amp hours. Okay, shame on me, too good to be true, but opening up this thing was a surprise from the other end of the spectrum. It's got Samsung, like legit 30T 21700 cells inside. To explain a bit, that's the same cells in a real XE 6.0, which explains the 6 amp hour thing, and even better cells than the XE 8.0 as we've historically found, performance-wise. So happy days, right? Worth keeping. Well, we used it on a grinder, and doing some actual work with this thing, it started to smoke. Come to find on a voltage drop test of our own that it won't even do our usual 700 watts worth of draw. It's burnt up. The primary leads to the board melted, causing resistance to shoot through the sky and power just disappear. About that same time, we were introduced to chapter 2 of our story. The channel Thrifty Tool Shed reached out to us about what appears to be a counterfeit XE 8.0 he bought and an 8.4 amp hour battery he made from spicy Molicel 4200 milliamp hour cells, and a creation he calls the Beast. And this one got our attention. 2 RC LiPo 5 amp hour packs Frankensteined into a cut open HD 12.0 pack that was having cell issues, so went under the knife. This makes for a 10 amp hour forge like battery, maybe a preview into that upcoming Milwaukee 12 amp hour forge. But either way, LiPo stacks on stacks for a good time. We said, well, heck, send them all over. During that time, we did 2 things. Repair and customize our own 8 amp hour knockoff purchase from Amazon to see how it could perform if it was made somewhat correctly by adding nickel strips everywhere to handle more current, and bought a cheapy $30 non-high output style 6 amp hour battery to compare all these two as a baseline. Are all the others we're testing still getting higher performance than other no-name batteries like this one? So that's everything here. Let's cover chapter 1 first. That seems to make sense. On a large 6-inch M18 angle grinder we were having trouble with on our Amazon purchase, a real XE 8.0 makes 900 watts. And with an XE 6.0, which has a bit higher discharge cells but less runtime inside, it makes 960 watts. Nice. So previously with this Amazon high output, 700 watts worth of draw made the connections inside melt. Now with some nickel support on these same battery cells and board, it's able to, and through the dyno, generate 740 watts with this grinder, which is still not factory OEM levels despite having the same cells inside. That's a bit of a bummer. Next up is the 6 amp hour we bought from Garrett battery store on Amazon. This little guy, even under a running speed test, is on the struggle bus out the gate. 7,160 RPM under a normal usage type load. A real M18 battery is closer to 8,000 RPM. And it really didn't go all that much further in the amount of dial turning to get this thing to give up 570 watts. But pulling a pure 700 watts in a V-drop test over 10 seconds, the Garrett is also at just 16.2 to 16.4 volts, 16.3 average, where a real 6 amp hour is at 18.5 to 18.7, so 18.6-ish. The Amazon 8 we bought is somewhere in the middle there. Across all tests, including types coming up, you'll be seeing in head-to-heads the Amazon 8 that measures as a 6, not sure what to classify it as, but either way, it comes in at 82% of an XE 8.0 and 77% of the performance of the 6 amp hour from M18. The Garrett comes in at just 61% of an XE 6.0 in performance. Sure, it's well under 60% the price of one as well, but I'd argue a battery that's 60% the performance is not 60% as valuable. Stopping and just getting stuck all the time on a saw or grinder cutting through things is never very fun. A 20-second quarter mile is, after all, about 60% as fast as a 12-second one. Now for our Thrifty Tool Shed Chapter 2 entries. Man, counterfeit batteries are getting better and better every year. Look at the packaging on this guy. Now there are some dead giveaways without opening one of these up to find out. All the battery indicator lights come on at the same time instead of sequentially like on a Milwaukee battery. And the weight is 4 ounces lighter. An easy way to tell is often these two things. The 6 and 8 amp hour high outputs should be 2 pounds 6.5 ounces. But that won't catch all of the fakes. So opening this thing up will definitely solve the equation. Differences on the board, the cell ends are covered here instead of exposing those Samsung colors, and the case markings, instead of PA6 plus PC polycarbonate markings, say M18-21700. This manufacturer using a similar case to build one of these as anyone else would buying one on Alibaba. That's kind of funny. In voltage drop, this one is similar to the pack we added strips to, and maybe a little bit higher actually, 17.9-ish volts. And on the large grinder, speed is decent, 7,750 RPM, and eventually when it's maxed out, it does make it to 700 watts, coming in less than our modified Meltastic 8 amp hour, but well above the Amazon 6. We tend to know our way around an impact wrench or two, so let's check it out on a high torque. The target for an M18 high torque here is going to be 778 foot-pounds, as you'll see here. The 6 amp hour we bought off of Amazon is contributing to the poor score it got in our percentage column with 616 foot-pounds here. Closer in real life to a mid-torque than their high torque. And the 778 target we have here is with an XE 5.0 included with the Impacts kit. For your reference, a 6 amp hour forge makes 813 foot-pounds on this gun, something we do get asked about. And here's the counterfeit 8 amp hour. Now the target for an equivalent real pack on this tool is about 790, but this guy's just not going to get there. In fact, it's not going to improve even on the Amazon 6 by much here, 647 foot-pounds. A bigger gap to the top than we would have assumed. Perhaps the largest variable and increasing constant load we can apply on these batteries is an M18 7.25 inch circular saw. This, otherwise with an 8 amp hour battery, is a 1000 watt tool, and it's just making 48% of that here with the Amazon 6, 480 watts. As for the counterfeit, it behaves like it did on the grinder and scores accordingly. A bit of a gap here, 770 watts. Again, not impressive, but also hard to know for sure if you own one of these whether it's the real deal if you don't already own some real ones. So let's try and sort of answer that. Across speed, output, torque from an impact, this pack is hitting with 79% of a real XE 8.0 that you thought you were buying. So would you realistically notice that? Well, you definitely would on a long draw tool, because this is also, like the 8 we bought, outputting 6 amp hours worth of capacity, not 8 amp hours. These guys must be allergic to actually using 8 amp hours worth of cells in these things. So yes, we think this would be noticeable. But what if you took that same battery, case, board, like literally everything, the same exact ones, and instead of deceiving customers with it as a business, made your own actual 8 amp hour capacity pack? Well, in this case, 8.4 using Mall Cell P42As, those high discharge babies inside. And things begin to look like what you're seeing now on screen. The grinder picked up 30 watts and is quite a bit different in RPM. The saw picked up here 50 watts over the counterfeit. Again, we're talking same cells, same boards. And as for voltage sag, that's also improving slightly above 18 volts here for the first time. On an impact wrench, we see some improvements on the curve. That's nice to see. And when we're talking total gains, it's to 675 foot-pounds over 647, but not quite getting there on an impact to where we're used to seeing things either. Now, Thrifty did add some strips to the main leads here, and that should be helping to max out the current. But whether it's the board or otherwise in that 21700 kit, it does appear to be bottlenecking things, because those Mall Cell batteries should be moving the needle. Our own Makita pack made with Mall Cell P45As just dominates in watts and in voltage drop. So all said, we're looking at 85% of the performance here. What does make this much more worth it overall, though, is that this is $78 in materials now. $50 of that is just the fancy batteries. So less cost than the fake, and your money will be going to someone with better karma as well. Now, the LiPo Beast. The Beast is awesome and strange. It uses these large gauge wires, battery balance leads, and even an external alarm switch to tell you if something's about to hit the fan, all connected to the stock genuine HD 12.0 board. And we found this to usually not work. It had a ton of potential and would sometimes get to some high numbers, only if it were bombarded with a load. It wouldn't run long enough under a load to really go anywhere and then shut off. So we sent it back to the shed, and you'll never believe this, that the genuine board was holding it back and something stupider was needed. So a copycat kit's board was swapped in its place, and with some verification testing by Thrifty, we had some serious tool torture to do. Which leads us to chapter 3. During that time, another viewer, Mike, asked us if we wanted to test his 13.5 amp hour and 15 amp hour M18 batteries. This is several months later. The new M18 Gen 3 high torque has now come out. We have the 1-inch impact dyno all set up from testing forge batteries and battery backpacks. So let's do this. The big boy matchup. Mike simply said one pack had green painted screws and the other pack had black. Otherwise, they look the same. So let's pop these open, which we did after testing. And this first one's going to have these green Samsung 50S cells inside, 5,000 milliamp hour cells, which means a total of 15 amp hours. Basically, it's one of these, which Milwaukee doesn't offer, but in the same size as an HD 12.0 size case. The second battery has these Milcell P45Bs inside, the next gen cells after the ones used by Thrifty in that 8.4 pack, but also 3 rows of 5 instead of 2 for a total of 13.5 amp hours. Less capacity total than the 15, but these are 45 amp continuous discharge rated cells and pricey too. It looks like Mike put solder over each of the connections as well, maybe some added thermal mass there, assuming those are over spot welds. I don't think we ever asked him. On to the new high torque. This impact makes a massive 891 foot-pounds with an XE 5.0 and 920 foot-pounds with a forged battery. Here's the 15 amp hour Samsung taking on the 13.5 Milcell pack. $904 over $895, both improving slightly over a stock XE 5.0, but not matching a 6 amp hour forge. Okay. And here's chapter 2 meeting chapter 3 in our story. The beast rises again. Here it is taking on the other big boys. $940, beating both an HD 12.0, a 6 amp hour forge, every other battery we've ever tested with it. Good stuff. Now, is that absolutely dunking on everything ever? Well, just strap in. On a follow-up run, the beast made, again, 940 exactly. That's nice to see. On a third run, which we do as usual, showing median on screen, it killed our Gen 4 2967. Like, the lights are on, but nobody is home. Luckily, this was tested last, but we did have to go out and buy another impact just to have on the channel. No mechanical parts appear to be dead inside, it just won't run any longer. How spicy is this thing? Well, V-drop tests seem to imply all of it. An HD 12.0 under a 700 watt load, like a small microwave, drops to about 19.2 volts over 10 seconds. That's really good. Mike's Milcell 13.5 drops to 19.1, quite similar. The Samsung 50S, we're talking 15 amp hours total, drops to 18.6 or so, and we're not even quite sure why. More capacity should mean less drop, and the Milcell one even started at a lower voltage. An M18 charger and even our benchtop supply didn't want to charge this much beyond 20.5 volts, it would just turn into a trickle. The M18 Forge, though, is sort of insane. Just 6 amp hours and 19.45 volts. It's an animal. But speaking of animals, the beast did not come to play around. 19.8 volts. And this is an 18 volt tool. You could have a large saw using 700 watts worth of juice to cut through something, and it's not even dropping below 19.5 volts. This 1-inch Milwaukee D handle, though, there's something about this tool. When they designed it, they must have had their sights on future battery tech, because they only suggest an HD 12.0 with this thing, and that makes 1,403 foot-pounds. It's not shabby. Years later, with the 6 amp hour forge, that shoots up to 1,534. And I don't know if it was something about this day, the stars must have aligned, but it was liking these new experimental packs. The Samsung and Milcell massive packs both made more than any M18 pack we've ever tried, to the tune of 1,600 and 1650 foot-pounds. It must really be a discharge amps craving tool and not so much voltage sag. And here is the beast. $1,672, and obviously a new record. This thing just gets it. Oh, but we're not done. If you think the 1200 watts the M18 saw sees with an HD12 or forged battery is cool, you ain't even ready. This thing does go beast mode. Holy crap. It is a beast. 1,450 watts. For some context, our backpack of 12 amp hour 21700 batteries made 1,430 watts on this same tool. And this thing even slides into and works on M18 AC inverters. And cordless drills, forget about it. With a forge, the Gen 4 hammer drill makes 47.3 foot-pounds. That's a cool tidbit for you guys, up from 46. With the beast, yeah, it just broke in half. It was having none of it that day. And that's what I mean when I said, forget about it. It sheared the hardware that holds the chuck on clean off. Didn't even get any data out of this thing. It's a pissed off octopus looking thing that may kill half your tools if you press it to its limits. We love it. We'd love Thrifty Tool Shed to make one with even higher C rating LiPo packs to just kill even more tools. I forgot we were even keeping score of things here and trying to learn something. Sorry about that. This is what all of that sort of looks like. Can't wait to see Milwaukee's version of their own 12 amp hour forge with LiPo cells. Appreciate you joining us. If you ever stumble across something that looks like this and throw it in your toolbox, don't be surprised if your tools start to unionize on you real quick. Click subscribe to maybe see future painful iterations, and thanks for watching.